Welcome back, students. Let's take a look at a new concept. It's called perimeter, and the perimeter of something is a distance around something. So, what I've got here is a couple of shapes on the screen here, and so what I'm going to do is kind of talk to you about like how to find the distance around something. So, perimeter. That's it's kind of a simple concept, but it's just you're literally just going to count the sides of something and count them all up, and then that's the perimeter around something. So in my shape that I've got here on the screen here, I've got a shape that is a 4 foot length and a 6 and a 3, a 7 and a 2 foot length. Okay. So if I just take all those and add them up, I've got a P, which is what stands for perimeter. P is perimeter of 22 feet. So that'd be a simple answer. Okay. However, this is where we're going to get into a little bit of conversions, which I said was coming here. On my next shape, I've got an 18-yard 2 foot side, which is the top here of this shape, a 21-yard 2 foot, 19 1, and a 22, 20-yard and 2 feet shape. I'm going to add up all those shapes, okay? And so if I do that, what I'm going to get is if I add up all my yards, I got 78 yards. I think that's correct. If I add up my feet, I've got 2 plus 2 is 4, 5, 6, 7 feet. Okay. All right. 7 feet. So I've got 78 yards and 7 feet left over. I think that's right. Remember that a yard is 3 feet. So how many times does 3 go into 7? It goes into it twice with 1 left over. So really, I've got 78 yards here. Got 78 yards plus I've got 2 feet left. Okay. I'm sorry, 2 yards. And I've got 5, it goes 6. There's 1 left over, 1 foot. Okay. That's what I have here. I've got 78 yards plus 2 yards plus 1 foot, which gives me 80 yards. Okay. Plus 1 foot. All right. So that's how you would add those up. You would add up your feet first, get a number, add up your yards first, next, and then make sure you look at your feet and convert it to yards by dividing by 3. Okay. All right, after this slide, I want you to do the homework on pages 88 and 89 of your textbook, and then we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, slide number 2 here. And again, I want you to pause the video and copy down everything you see, and then start her up again. Recognizing common polygons. Okay, so we've got this new word here on the screen here. Now that you've copied everything down here, a polygon is I've got a little definition right here. It's a flat figure formed by 3 or more lines. Okay, so when we've been looking at triangles in various shapes here, like triangles and squares and rectangles, they're all considered, all of them are, everything on the screen is considered a polygon. It's a flat figure and it's got 3 or more lines to it. So your homework for this part is just recognizing some of the polygons, and you want to be sure and kind of study them. Okay. I think you'll recognize a triangle, the far left here. Okay. That's a pretty easy one. A square, you'll recognize that all the sides are equal. Okay. And therefore they're all 90-degree angles, by the way, all 4 of them. And a rectangle also has all 90-degree angles, but a rectangle has 2 sides that are parallel to each other, but they're longer. So those are the first 3 shapes. Then you've got up here in the far right-hand corner, you've got a parallelogram. I'll just start with this parallelogram right here. Okay. It's called a parallelogram because it's got 2 equal sides that are parallel to each other. So if I call this side 1 here, it's goes parallel to side 2, which means they would go on side by side forever, never cross each other. Okay. They're perfectly parallel. And then sides 3 and 4 are also parallel to each other. So they call it a parallelogram because it's got these sides that are parallel. All right. Now, in this case, my 3 and 4 sides are longer than side 1 and 2. However, once in a while, you'll run into a parallelogram where all the sides it's called a rhombus, and it's in the upper right-hand corner here. And in a rhombus, all the sides are equal. So their two sides are parallel to each other. The right and left, the top and bottom are parallel to each other, but all the sides are equal. So it's called a rhombus. Okay, just there you go. Then you got something in the bottom here called a trapezoid. It has only one pair of parallel sides. And you'll see that if this is side one here and this is side two, these two are parallel, but the other two sides, if three and four here, are not parallel. So that's that we call it a trapezoid. Okay. All right. Complete problems 1 through 12 on page 91 should be pretty easy because you're just identifying basically the various shapes. Okay. Various polygons. All right. We're going to move on to the next slide and try to move through this as quickly as possible. I'm going to talk about a concept called area of something. Okay. And be sure and pause the video, copy this down, play the video. Okay. It's a measure of the surface space of something. That's the area of something. If you think of area as the space of the floor that you're sitting or standing on right now in the whole room, it's that area, that surface space. Okay. Um, so, for instance, in my diagram on the left here, my little picture on the left here, I've got an area that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 area units to it. So the actual area could be, and by the way, area is measured as A. This letter A equals A area, just like P equals perimeter. We could look at that surface here. We'll just call this surface number one here as an area of 6. Okay. Look at surface number 2 here at the bottom left. If we just count all the units, 1, 2, 3, 4, we count up to 10 area units. Okay. And I know that's my drawing. It's not perfect, but we can say it has 10 area units. Okay. And then we got a drawing here over on the far right that's got, it's a little bit weird looking because it's got like half units. So if you count the squares that are full squares in there, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 full squares, and then we'll call all these ones that look like little triangles here. I'll put an arrow right to these. Okay, we'll call these half squares. Okay, so I got one half plus another half gives me a whole, and another half plus another half gives me another whole. So I've got 6, 7, 8 area units here. Okay, and you'll have a question like that in your book. Okay. All right, complete the homework on pages 92 and through 93 in your book, but do the odds only. Don't do every problem. Just do the odds. Okay. All right. We will move on. All right, working with squares here. So be sure and copy down my pictures and my notes first. Now what we're doing is we're going to find the perimeter of a square, okay? And the perimeter, if you remember from one of our last lessons, is the distance around something. So if I add up all the sides, then I can figure out the perimeter of something. So, all right. So if you're talking about a square, if my yellow example up here at the top, let's imagine that this is a perfect square, and it doesn't look perfect. Maybe it is, but let's say that it's a perfect square. So all the sides are equal. Okay. Well, the formula, and I like to use this word formula a lot because it kind of helps my students just remember, okay, yeah, I use this formula to figure this out. Let's plug these numbers in. The perimeter of a square is 4 times one side. Okay. This S here stands for a side here. Okay. So if they only gave you one side of a square, you can figure out the perimeter by just going 4 times that side. Okay. So that's the formula to find out the perimeter of something. And so if you had a question and they gave you a square here, I'm going to draw a little square here, and they said that this is 3. Okay, give me the perimeter of the whole square. It'd be 4 times 3, 12. Okay. All right. You're also going to have a few problems like this next one down here on the left here. It says side S formula. If you're trying to find the side, now this is the formula. This is a formula here for finding a side if they give you something else. So side equals the perimeter divided by 4. And if that makes sense, right? Because if one side times 4 gives me the perimeter, then if I have the perimeter and divide it by 4, that'll tell me what that one side originally was. Okay. And so, let's say that let's just say that we had the perimeter of this whole thing was 3, 6, 9, 12. Let's say it was 12. Okay. And they just gave you this whole perimeter is 12 for this whole diagram. This is the P here. Okay. Can you figure out, and then they gave you what the side was. You could say this, or I'm sorry, you could just say the perimeter, which is 12 divided by 4. I'm using the formula above here, and that would give me the 3 that I put up on the top of the square here. Okay. So again, if they ask you for a side, but they give you the perimeter, just divide it by 4, and that'll give you what that side was. Let's take a look at an example question just like this. In the top right here, I've got what is the length of each side of a square that has a perimeter of 140 inches? Okay. So again, I want to reinforce to you, please write the formula down on your notes, in your paper, just like I did right here. I'm going to put a box around this, okay? Just do this. Go, okay, formula, side equals perimeter, or perimeter divided by 4. Then start plugging in your numbers, because it's that principle of going slower gets you there faster. Okay. Then you get side equals 140 divided by 4. And so if you punch that into your calculator, you get 35. Okay. 35 inches, or 2 feet and 11 inches if you converted that to feet. Okay. All right. For homework, I want you to do the odds on page 95 of your textbook before moving on to our next slide. All right, let's talk about finding the area of squares. So be sure and pause the video, copy down the notes. Okay. All right, we've got a formula. And again, I'm really big on, I actually just physically on your notes, write out formula for area. The formula for area is A, stands for area, equals S squared. Okay, and see that little S with a little 2 above it. So if they ask you for the area of my square here, that's kind of a purplish color here, okay, and they give you one side, well, area equals 4 squared. So that would be written out as, listen to this carefully, 16 square feet, because it's as if we had all these little squares, they're each a foot by a foot, and there are 16 of them, and actually be that's what that means. Okay. Example question 2 here on the right here is, what is the length of the side of a square? And that should see side here. Excuse me here. I'm going to fix that. The side of a square that has an area of 36 feet. All right. All right. So, all right, we know that the total area here of this red square here is 36. And we know that it's a side squared equals the area. Okay, because that's the formula, area equals side squared. If we find the square root of the total area, this 36, and that's what this little sign here is that I'm kind of filling in here again, that's the square root sign. If we find the square root of 36, we know what the side is, and the side is 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. Okay. So just either way, if they give us just one side, we can figure out the whole area, okay, using the area equals side squared. If they give us the total area, we can figure out the side by just finding the square root of that total area, okay? All right, I want you to do the homework on the odd problems only on page 97, and pause the video, and then once you're done with that, go on to the next slide. Okay, let's see here. Now, let's see, I seem to have okay, I'm just trying to see if I can, okay. Yeah, on this problem here, it's just not showing up on the screen very well, and I wanted to see if I could somehow move that here. Can I move that? Let's just take this problem here. This is for, now we're talking about rectangles, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write it on the screen for you here. When we've got a rectangle, okay, so the formula for an area of a rectangle, formula is going to be really simple. Area equals L times W. Okay. Where L stands for the length and a W is the width. So what I'm going to do is take my eraser here and erase this stuff here. So it kind of, let's take a look at our square, our rectangle here. Let's say that it's got a width of 4 feet and a length of 8 feet. Okay. And that means that this is going to be 4 and this is going to be 8, by the way. But if you want to find the area of a rectangle, okay, then we're just going to take the length times the width. In this case, area equals, okay, the length is 8 times the width is 4, and 8 times 4 equals 32. Okay. So let's say that this is feet, that was 8 feet and 4 feet. That would be 32. The area would be 32 square. This is how you would write it on your paper, feet, because it's like there's little boxes in there. Okay. All right. Again, so the area formula for a rectangle is just the length times the width. Do the odds on pages 98 and 99 before we move on to, I think, our last slide. Okay. This slide basically says what my last slide said. I seem to have mixed up one of my slides, but basically this is the same thing. So, however, I do want to, so the first one at the top, the red one there, that one's kind of, we talked about, but let's talk about this example question at the bottom of the screen. Okay. What is the width of a rectangle that has an area of 48 square yards and a length of 12 yards? Okay, so you see how this is a little bit of a different question here at the bottom. They want to know the width. They're not asking for the area in this case. Okay, they're asking for the width. Okay. Well, I've got another formula in red here written down. So we know that the formula for the area is length times width. All right. The formula for a width, okay, that's what this W here is standing for, is if you take the area divided by the length, that is it. So width, here's my formula just written out like there. Width equals the area, in this case, 48 square yards, divided by the length, and I get 4 yards. So that's how I would, if they gave me the area of a rectangle and they just gave me the length, okay, which is what I've got here. I've got a length of 12 yards. If I divide that 12 into 48, and I will get 4, and that gives me the width of it, okay? Likewise, let's say they gave you the width, but they didn't give you the length. Okay. It's going to be the area divided by the width. So the length equals, okay, it would be the area 48 divided by, we know that the width is, we just figured out that the width is 4, okay, which equals 4 goes into 48, 12 yards, okay. So that's how we would figure out if they just give you a length and the width, and they want the area, multiply length times width, you got the area. If they just give you the area and one of those length or width, just follow these two formulas in the bottom left, and you'll be able to figure out what that length is or missing width is. All right, do the odds on page 101 of your textbook. And again, as always, if you have questions, please be sure and ask and be really specific with your questions.